For Clemson to win against App State, Phil Mafah is going to have a huge day.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host, John Bivens. You can follow us over on Twitter at I am John Bivens. We are a credentialed media member for all things Clemson for baseball, basketball, and football. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Here on Locked On Clemson, you're getting all sports, all passion, all of the time, where we're bringing you everything you need to know regarding Clemson sports. I know we're in a different location today, a little bit different setup on YouTube viewers. We apologize for the different background, as well as a little bit different camera quality. We are visiting some family out of town, but we brought the mic to stay connected with you. We are holding it today. So if the audio listeners, if the audio sounds differently, it is because we are holding a mic. Don't have a stand with us today, but hey, we're going to have a great episode for you either way. Today's episode, we're talking about how Phil Mafah has got to have a big day, talking about how we got to utilize our playmakers in our game tomorrow. And then we're going to end it up with who is App State, taking a deep dive into their strengths and weaknesses. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app now, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. For Clemson to win this game against App State, Phil Mafah has got to have a big day. If we want to win this game, we cannot just rely on Cade Klubnik to carry us. We can't rely on us to be able to have a great passing game or our defense to shut out. Because let's be real, they got a good offense. The App State's got a good offense. We'll get into that. But here's what we got to have. We've been talking about it for over a year now. We've heard about it for over a year now. We've heard about so much about this dirt raid, about the dirt raid of Clemson offense, about how Garrett Riley, Dabo Swinney, they came in with this game plan of the dirt raid. And we've heard about it all the time, this dirt raid, this dirt raid, this dirt raid. And if you don't know what that is, if you've heard about the air raid, which is you pass the ball over and over and over again, and you pass the ball, you pass the ball, you pass the ball. Air raid is your pretty much offense is only passing. The dirt raid is not the exact opposite of that, but it's the mindset of you run the ball so much that a defense has to do something to stop your run, which opens up the field dramatically for the pass game. So the dirt raid is a successful run game that leads to a successful pass game. We need to see that. We've been hearing about that for over a year, since before Garrett Riley was hired. As soon as he was hired, that's what we heard about was the dirt raid. But we really haven't seen that. We haven't seen that concept of the run setting up the pass. We haven't seen that concept of running the game so successfully behind a great offensive line that it allows Cade Klubnik to have the pass. Look, some teams have a quarterback and have an offensive system that the pass game can be successful from the get-go, and you pass the ball so much, kind of like an air raid, that leads to the running game getting some room, getting some openings. If your pass game, your quarterback comes in so dangerous that the defense only rushes 3 or 4 every time and gets nobody in the box just to make sure that the wide receivers and the tight ends are covered, trying having as much coverage as possible where the quarterback can't be successful. There is teams like that. There is teams out there that have the dangerous of a pass game offense, that teams focus on that, and you start off with the pass game, and then that'll lead to running game success. Clemson doesn't have that. We don't have that for a couple different reasons. One, we don't have that because we don't have the proven success. Cade Klubnik has not gone out there and proved that he can be that dangerous of a quarterback. He hasn't proved consistency. He hasn't proved in the ability to be able to hit his open targets every single time. He hasn't proved the deep game threat, that he's a threat at the deep level, throwing it way down the sticks. He hasn't proved that. He hasn't proved the ability to run, honestly. He hasn't proved the threat that he can run the ball outside and scramble for yardage. Because he hasn't proved there, they haven't brought that defense. They haven't brought those coverages in. Our offense hasn't proved that they're the kind of the kind of team that can do that. So what do we need? We've got to have Matt Luke, who's supposed to be this amazing offensive line coach, and I think he's going to be good. I don't think the Georgia game is truly a good measuring mark for where this team's at on the offensive line. But in this game, we need our pass game to be working. We need Cade Klubnik to be able to score the ball and be able to touch the end zone. We need our team to touch the end zone at least more than once, unlike Georgia, where we didn't at all. But for us to win, we've got to have a successful run game. We've got to have our run game picking up, finding the holes, getting yards, more than 56 yards on the ground. We need to have Phil Mafah close to a century mark. And I think that's possible. I think that is very much a situation where we can see that happen. But if we want to win, our offense has got to be clicking. We've got to be scoring points. We've got to be touching the end zone. We've got to be having the pass game successful. But in order for that to happen, Phil Mafah has got to have a big game. But I don't think he's going to have to do it alone. I think we have a team right now that has some running backs that honestly I think are going to get some action. I think you're going to see some field. Phil Mafah is going to have a lot of carries. I could see him easily getting up 16, 17, 18 carries in this game. And I could see him having a lot of yards with those. But I think we'll also see some of our backups. This week in some pros conferences, Dabo Swinney talked about how he wants to be able to see more players. He wants to see more rotation at all levels, more players than just the starters getting in. So I think we'll see some of the backups at running back. I think we'll see Jay Haynes come into the game. I think we'll see what he is. He's a redshirt freshman. I think we'll see him get some action, him come into the game, have some opportunities to make some plays. I think we'll even see some Keith Adams Jr. come into the game, redshirt sophomore. I think we'll see both of them have a couple snaps, good amount of carries. I could see both of them getting 5 carries each. So I think this is going to be a run-heavy game at the beginning at least until we can open up that pass game. And I think if we want to have, like we said, the pass game's got to have successful. App State is too good of a team on offense where they're going to score some points. You look at their games against Carolina in the past couple of years. I mean, 2 years ago, what was the final score? 63-61. Wild, right? They have a team that can score. They have a team that can put up points. Now, I don't think they're going to drop 61 on Clemson. By no means do I think that. But I do think they're going to score. Now, we'll get into what my score prediction will be in a little bit long, but we're going to have to score multiple times in order to beat this team. And in order for us to score, our pass game has got to be successful. And in order for our pass game to be successful, our running game has to be there. So Phil Mafah, we need him coming out and having an amazing, amazing game. We need him truly playing to his best potential, being able to hit the gaps, make the contact, push through the contact, getting some first downs, having a couple big runs, explosive runs. The player that we saw back up Will Shipley for the majority of last year, we need him to truly come in and be the starter and leader of this rush game. If that can happen, Clemson won't have a problem with App State. We've got to have Phil Mafah have a big, big game. That's what we needed to see. Now, as Clemson fans, right now, our confidence is shaken, right? We're a little bit humbled after that Georgia game. Now we need to talk about what are some things that we need to see in order to bring this confidence back up. The culture, the Clemson community, what are some things we need to see from this game tomorrow in order to have some of that confidence brought back? I'll give you a hint. A lot of it has to do with some playmakers. When you're hiring for small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is the tool to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I've had the experience of using LinkedIn Jobs both as an employer and employee. And in my opinion, they are one of the most simplest, easiest ways to use in order to find the right job or the right hires for the job you're looking for. LinkedIn Job isn't just a job board. It helps you find professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even on the site, there's a lot of people that aren't actively looking for a new job, but they're still open to the perfect role if it comes up. In a given month, 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong spot. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today. Terms and conditions apply. I want to see the team show that they know how to utilize our playmakers. Look, we have crazy talented players. This team has so many weapons, has dangerous receivers, has dangerous people that can truly make a difference. And my biggest problem against that Georgia game is a lot of those talented players that we're talking about didn't have the chance to prove that. They didn't get the looks. They didn't get the targets. They barely got used at all. We have a loaded wide receiver room. I mean, our wide receiver room has a lot of talent in it. It's filled with great players, but it also has some bridge players. And when I say bridge players, here's what I mean. I think when it comes down to wide receivers, you have two categories. You have the kind of player that is the explosive kind, the Clemson kind, right? Like that true Clemson great player, the T. Higgins, the Mike Williams, the DeAndre Hopkins, the Justin Ross, those players. I think you also have the gap players or the bridge players. These are the ones that help your team transition from those great players to the other great players, the in between players. I think right now our team has both of those players on it. And the problem is those bridge gap players are the ones receiving the majority of time. Those bridge and those gap players, the one helping you get from great player to great player, those are the ones that are receiving the majority of the playing time right now. And that's a problem. We need to have the players that are going to be on the roster, the ones that are game changers, the ones that are playmakers, the ones that can take the game into their hands and make a great field. And so our wide receiver room, let's just go through who all of our wide receivers are. Our wide receivers right now, you've got Antonio Williams, Adam Randall, Tyler Brown, Bryant Wesco Jr., Cole Turner, Troy Stellato, Hampton Earl, Mason Kelly, and TJ Moore, and then Noble Johnson. Here's the four that I think without a doubt should be receiving time on the field, should be seeing targets, should be getting a lot of action on the field. Antonio Williams, Tyler Brown, Bryant Wesco Jr., and TJ Moore. Those four wide receivers should be on the field. And I think the order that I said it is the order of the depth chart. I think wide receiver 1, Antonio Williams right now. He's the most proven. Wide receiver 2, Tyler Brown. I think he's also up there. Wide receiver 3 is Bryant Wesco Jr. And wide receiver 4 is TJ Moore. That should be the order of the depth chart. I mean, no questions, no worrying, no doubts, nothing, anything like that. That should be the depth chart. Those four players are the ones that we have to let be our playmakers. We've got to utilize them. We've got to get them targets. We've got to get them snaps. We've got to get them on the field. The fact that Bryant Wesco Jr. and TJ Moore both had one reception against Georgia in a game where even if you're saying they want to give them time and don't want to put them out there with the pressure, all right, we were getting blown out and they still only got one reception. That's unacceptable. Why are you bringing in 5-star talent, great talent wide receivers to let them rot on the bench? And I know I'm saying that after one game, but we've got to utilize our playmakers. And when the people above them are proving that they're not being playmakers, that they're not making a difference, why aren't they getting a chance? And that's what I don't understand. We have some gap players on our team, and I'll be honest. Some of these players I'm going to talk about are players that I really like. Are ones that I really enjoy watching and I wish success. But some of those bridge gap wide receivers that we're talking about are Cole Turner. I know he's fast. I know he's shifty, but he does not have the playmaking ability of some of these other players. Another one is Troy Stellato. He is a dog. He's got this attitude about him where no one's going to shut him up. And I love that about him, but he doesn't have the talent. He doesn't have the potentials these other players. Mason Kelly, we just haven't seen a lot of him. He's a redshirt freshman. He doesn't need to be on the field right now. Hampton Earl, he's a graduate student. He doesn't need to be in there. And Noble Johnson, another redshirt freshman, they don't need to be in there. Those are our really good players and then our gap players. We went through both those. If you're a Clemson fan, you know I'm missing one player. And the player I haven't talked about yet is Adam Randall. I know I have not mentioned Adam Randall, and that's because, in my opinion, I think he falls somewhere in between these two. I don't think he's one of the massive playmakers. I don't think he belongs with that group of four of the Antonio Williams, Tyler Brown, Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore. I don't think he belongs in that group. But I think he's better than Cole Turner, Troy Stellato, and the rest of them. I think he is better than that group. And so with that being said, I think he belongs in the middle. I think he deserves to see the field some. He deserves to be able to get some targets. I think he can help this team out to an extent. I don't think he should be prioritized over the other playmakers. And right now he is. If you look at the target rise, if you look at snap count, he's second wide receiver. Antonio Williams, then Adam Randall. And I know he's older than the freshmen. I know he's older than Tyler Brown. I don't think he has the ability to be that kind of playmaker. I don't think he has the potential or the ability to be the kind of playmaker that of what they're giving him the targets for. I just don't see that. And with that being said, I think we've got to be able to let him get some talent, let him get see some spots on the field, but don't rely on him to be your number one playmaker. That's what those other four guys are there for. That's why you brought in the 2 5-stars. Let them shine. So in order to bring back some confidence, one, utilize some playmakers. We've got to see that. Number two, in order to bring back some confidence, we're playing an FCS opponent. As good as App State is, don't let that go. Don't let that leave your mind. They are an FCS opponent, and while they probably are the best one out of the group of 5, they probably are one of the best one. They're not FCS, but they are Group 5. Sorry, they're not FCS, but we're playing this Group 5 opponent, and without a doubt, they aren't the level of the ACC. They aren't the level of Power 4. In order to restore some confidence, please don't let this be a close game. We do not need to see a close game against App State. If we come out and we barely beat them, granted, if we score a touchdown, that's an improvement. But if we come out and barely beat App State, you talk about losing some confidence. This is one of those games that the culture, the Clemson community could easily walk away with a win and still have less confidence than we walked into. Because this is a game where we have the chance to truly show off what this team talked about. All the great stuff that Dabo talked about, all the hype that we've seen. This is the time we need to see this because we didn't see it against Georgia. We saw no improvements from last year to this year against Georgia. If anything, we saw a decrease. This is a time where we want to see Clemson truly live up to the hype. We need to see them win by multiple possessions. We don't need to see, I want App State to be out of the game in the first quarter. That would be amazing to see. Obviously, that's what everybody wants, but we truly need to see that happen. We've heard so much hype. We've heard so much talk about how this team's different and how Dabo's still in it. And I agree. I believe Dabo still got it, but we've heard so much talk about Clemson. If we want to truly see Clemson get to that level, if we really want to see Clemson back to who they are, this game, for having confidence be brought back to the team, we need to see them show it during this game right now. And the third thing that I want to see is I want to see some turnovers. Last year, we lost the turnover battle a lot. I want this defense to truly show how dominant they are. We know this defense is a championship level defense. They showed it really well in the first half. They didn't get help from the offense, got tired from being out there all the time, and that showed in the second half. But this defense is a championship level off defense. Let's see some turnovers. Let's see them 3 and outs. Let's see some interceptions. I want to see some turnovers showing them say, hey, yeah, our offense might not be playing well right now, but this defense is still who we are. We are still the defense we claim to be, and we're not changing that. We're still going to be here. We're going to cause turnovers. We're not going to allow a lot of yards. We're going to have the scoring get low. So we need to see that. If we can see those 3 things, playmakers utilized, scoring a lot, right? Not a close game, and our defense causing turnovers, there'll be a lot of confidence brought back to this Clemson community and the culture of Clemson. We've looked at what we want to see. We've looked at what we need to see from Clemson. Now let's take a deep dive into who exactly App State is. College football is back in action, and very little is better than a game day at Clemson University. I love going to the stadium. I love feeling the vibe, the energy of the fans. I love everything about it. My go-to place for tickets is the Gametime app. They're the easiest place for you to go for all your ticket needs. Whether it's in advance or the day of, prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to kickoff. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Clemson game day is electric. If you've never been to a game day at Clemson, tomorrow's your chance. You need to go. If you've been deciding if you're going to get tickets or not, let me help you. Go to the game. It's amazing. And Gametime allows you that opportunity. They have a thing that allows you to customize your experience where they get to know you and they kind of put up some super deals that are impacted just for you and customized to see who you are. Some of my favorite things about Gametime are I love the fact you get 60% off for last minute tickets. I also love that almost every single seat before you buy, you get a panoramic view so you know exactly what to expect. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app now today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for a discount discount off your first purchase. Terms apply. What are you waiting for? Go buy some tickets with Gametime. App State has a dangerous offense that can score fast and can score a lot. Clemson hasn't played App State since 2015. The last time we played, we won comfortably. Perhaps the highlight of that game is about a 35-yard run that Wayne Gallman busted through, trucked the guy as he went into the end zone, and then stood over him. A lot of people see that replay and they're like, wow, Wayne Gallman's a punk. No, when you look at it, when you truly know, the guy that he trucked was running his mouth the entire game, cussing at the players, screaming at the fans, screaming at the coaches. And so that was kind of a moment like, welcome to Clemson. Sit down and be quiet. It was a great moment. It was fun to watch. But we haven't played them in 9 years. And because of that, some of our modern day fans might not know exactly who App State is. So we want to go through and we want to give you their biggest strengths and their biggest weaknesses ahead of this game. Their strength, number one, is by far their quarterback. Their quarterback, Joey Aguilar, is a 6'3", 220-pound senior. That is a stud. I mean, this guy can absolutely ball. There is no questions about it. He can ball. And the first game he played this year against ETSU, they played that week 1, and they won comfortably. He went through and he went 22 for 36 with a total of 326 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had an 83-yard pass. He also had 5 rushing attempts for 19 yards, 2 touchdowns there. So he was responsible for 4 touchdowns himself. He's a beast. He's a guy that can throw it all over the field. He doesn't need a lot of time to get set. He doesn't need a clean pocket. He can move around. He can throw on the run. He can hit open targets. He can squeeze the ball when he needs to. He's a guy that can score. And he's got experience. He's played against Carolina a couple times competitively. So he's got some experience. He's also sat behind some good players. He sat behind Chase Bryce, the Clemson transfer, Duke transfer. That was at App State for a while. He sat behind them for a year. He's got some experience. He's got some talent. He's a good player. So he's got a quarterback that is a great quarterback over with Joey Aguilar. That's their strength number one, is their quarterback. I really believe he's got some talent, and we saw that last week. Their strength number 2 is their running threats. And they've got a lot of people that can run the ball. I mean, a lot of people that can run the ball really, really well. Last game against ETSU, they had a combined 7 people get some rushing attempts, with 5 of them getting multiple attempts. Their leading rusher was probably last week was Kanye Robertson, who had 9 attempts for 35 yards. They also had Mekhi Jackson, who had 1 rush, but he had 4, broke it out for 47 yards. They have rushing all over the field. Joey Aguilar, like we talked about, he can move around, he can rush. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Mekhi Jackson, that 47-yarder, was a touchdown as well. So they had 3 rushing touchdowns last week. But overall, they had 177 yards rushing last week against ETSU. And I know it's ETSU. It's not Clemson. It's not a Power 4 conference, but they can run the ball. That's a strength for them. They have a great quarterback, and then they also have a team that can run the ball. They can move the ball on the ground, and they can pound it. And then lastly, their strength number 3 is their defense is usually one that's consistent. They're not going to be the best out there. They're not going to be causing the most turnovers. They're not going to be doing anything like that. But they are a defense that can usually stay patient. They don't cause a lot of flags. They're not getting penalized a lot. And they're also one that doesn't give up a lot of big plays. Most of the time last year when App State lost, it wasn't the big plays that killed them. It was the drives that were well maintained. The drives that were first down. You know, the longer play drives, 8, 9 play drives for 75 yards. Those plays, those possessions are the ones that'll kill App State. The strength is they have a defense they're not going to give up a lot of big plays. And seeing how Cade Klubnik played last week, maybe lower your expectation if you're expecting a lot of big plays from Clemson this week. But they're a team that knows how to prevent those. They know how to prevent the big plays. They don't get penalized a lot. So Clemson's going to have to be methodical. They're going to have to put up some drives that are routine, hitting the easy plays, hitting the checkdowns, getting some first downs. They're going to have to do that in order to beat App State. So there are 3 strengths: Joey Aguilar, their quarterback, running threats, and the multiple threats that they have. And then their defense is consistent and doesn't give up big plays or get penalized. Their 3 weaknesses, going through the team, their 3 biggest weaknesses. Number 1, they have a lack of depth. They have some good players. They have some players that can make a difference. but they don't have a lot of depth. If they get an injury, one injury could absolutely ruin this team. Whereas Clemson, honestly, I don't think we have one injury that would destroy this team. You look at the main players. If Phil Mafah gets hurt, that would be a big one. But I think Jay Haynes, Keith Adams Jr. could fill in that gap. Not as well, but they could fill it in. Cade Klubnik gets hurt. CV could come in, and I think, well, I mean, look what Cade did against Georgia. CV could do that. He could come in and play well. Barrett Carter, in my opinion, Barrett Carter would probably be the one that would hurt us the most as that captain on the defense. I think we have the talent to have him come in. I think Sammy Brown could come in and help replace some of that talent, but just the leadership that Barrett Carter has, that would hurt us the most. App State, they have a lot of different positions where one injury would ruin them. On the offensive line, they really don't have depth to come back in. Their quarterback, outside of Joey Aguilar, they don't have anybody else. They only have a couple good wide receivers. So while they have some good players, they don't have the depth that a lot of big teams have. Size weakness number 2 is they have some secondary issues. Their cornerbacks, their safeties, they have some problems where they're not the best at being able to guard some big time wide receivers in those areas. So they have some issues there on the secondary. Their pass defense can sometimes be a little bit vulnerable. And then weakness number 3 is their size mismatch. Look, history has shown it, except against Carolina, they struggle against physically larger Power 5 opponents, or Power 4. I don't count Pac-12. They struggle against some Power 4 conferences. They have some players that are good. They have some players that have the size there that went to App State. But for the most part, if a player's good enough to play with the Power 4, they went to a Power 4 school. I mean, that's obvious. That's why it's there. That's why the division's there. But App State does have some players that can compete, but for the most part, they do struggle when it comes down to size and speed. So Clemson should be able to utilize that. So their biggest strengths are Joey Aguilar, running threats, and then a consistent defense. Their biggest weaknesses are lack of depth, size mismatch, and secondary issues. Overall, if Clemson plays Clemson ball, if our offense can truly play what our offense says we could do, and we've seen before, this game shouldn't be close. This game should easily be a win. But if Clemson goes out there and we ignore App State's potential, we don't play our offense, we don't have the good plays that we know are there. If they go out there and don't play to their key potential, this could be ugly. This could be a week where we either win barely or we even lose if we're not careful. So Clemson's got to play careful. We've got to play our ball, and we've got to make sure we utilize and take advantage of their weaknesses. But with all that being said, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. Now go check out Locked On College Football Podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McCoughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't need to search. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tomorrow after the game, we will have a post-game episode where we're going to give our thoughts on the game, talk about what went down, break through all that. But we also want to let you know, join the Locked On Clemson Insider Program. Guys, you want to be a part of this. This is at a time where you can chat with us. You can send messages to us one-on-one during the game, where we can literally text back and forth during the game talking about big moments. So join that program. You get 14 days for free. It also comes with some great stuff like bonus episodes, bonus videos. You can send in questions that will be featured here on the show, as well as some other stuff. So join that community. Text Clemson to 864-252-1907. Join that community. I promise you'll enjoy it. But we'd love to hear thoughts on today's episode. Drop a comment, send us a message on Twitter. If you haven't, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast, wherever you get your podcast at, on podcast or Spotify, anywhere there. Or if you're over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button there. That way, every single day, we can be your first listen here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Make sure to check out all the other podcasts from the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I know we don't have the banner ahead of us, but we can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode. But until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring. And as always, go Tigers.